Breaking news. It's 11 o'clock. It's 11 a.m., right? And the Patriots lost Jakobi Meyers. This is take two for Patriots Press Pass. We apologize to those of you who jumped on earlier. Had some technical difficulties. We've squared them away. We're here to talk about Jakobi Meyers. And you know what? There's been other news since then. Patriots made a move signing an offensive tackle. We'll talk about that. There's some interesting things going on over in New York involving the Jets and who we assume is going to be their future quarterback. We'll talk about that as well. And a few other things here over the next 20, 30 minutes. Welcomed by Taylor Kyles, Patriots beat reporter here at CLNS Media. What's up, man?
Hey, sorry for the delay, everybody. I'm seeing the comment section. But if you didn't see Twitter, I bought out Best Buy. We're good.
Yeah.
No problems from here on out. So we're chilling.
We're good.
We're good to be back. And there's been some more news, so I'm ready to get into it.
All right, let's remind people, of course, of our title sponsor here at CLNS Media Network. FanDuel, exclusive wagering partner here of all of our sports-related content. You can get in on the action, especially here if you live in Massachusetts or reside or are even just visiting Massachusetts or passing through. Sign up at FanDuel.com/Boston. Take advantage of that exclusive offer. Bet 5, get 200, and get your betting on. If that's something that you're into, make sure you do, of course, always bet responsibly. But if that is something that you like to do, this is a great opportunity and a really good bonus and a really good promo here. FanDuel.com/Boston. If you are going to do it, it really does help us if you kind of support our sponsors here and help us kind of bring you all of this free content that we like to deliver. So, Taylor, let's go. Meyers, and again, we had this conversation briefly before. The number was lower than what I thought it would be, $33 million. So I am a little bit surprised the Pats didn't get there. First off, do you think they should have met this asking price if this is what it would have taken to keep Meyers here?
I think if it was a priority for the Patriots, it was a deal they would have met. From reports, it sounded like they were interested in bringing him back. But once it got to 11 million, they were like, that's okay. Good for you. Time to move on. Also important to realize that the Vegas Raiders, in the deal, it's basically a year-to-year deal. So even the Raiders, with Josh McDaniels, who's had experience coaching Meyers for most of his career, even he wasn't necessarily, on or the Raiders organization with his experience weren't necessarily on board with saying, yes, Jakobi Meyers, we are going to commit to you for 3 years. That's not how the deal is actually structured. I think that shows you, and Meyers was seen as the top free agent on the market. So all of these things come together to tell you Meyers, great leader, consistent player. He doesn't do enough in the modern NFL to really make you say, we got to keep this guy on our team. And it tells you something when Jakobi is the only person who's been on the offense consistently, other than David Andrews, of course, and veterans like that. But in terms of the receiving group, he's the only consistent person since Tom Brady left and was even there in Brady's last season. So when it comes to should the Patriots have paid him, I think the Raiders even told you that no, probably not.
Yeah. I mean, I actually don't understand it for the Raiders. I think, when they made the acquisition, I looked at them. I'm like, that's their number 4 target, behind Waller, Renfro, and Devontae. But then was, and then Waller was traded. But you've got some other guys there who honestly could press Jakobi, on that depth chart. So I'm just not sure he's like a plug and play automatic wide receiver 2, even though he was being marketed as one and being considered one based off of his production numbers in New England. But that was, again, largely a byproduct of not a lot of other options and becoming a real kind of safety blanket for the quarterbacks that New England has had here the last few years. I don't know that production necessarily translates. He's a surefire, sure-handed guy, but he's a possession receiver who gets the ball, goes down, doesn't make plays, doesn't have that big of a ceiling. Maybe a great guy you can throw to on some third downs and this and that. But I'm not going to lament the loss, but at this moment, the Patriots wide receiver core is worse than it was yesterday.
Oh, yeah, but that's also because it's the second day of free agency.
Yeah, but it's not, the season starts today. No.
The season starts today for the fans. For anybody who's running or working in teams, the season, it's a very, very long season. Veterans aren't even going to be in the building on the field for a very long time. So it's important to understand contract, like people are still testing the market. It also relies on how much certain players are making. Like yesterday, you saw that Von Bell's contract numbers didn't come out for a while. Jesse Bates was really the person who kind of streamlined the rest of the signings. Like free agency is a process. I completely understand. Like I've been in fan shoes where you're bored as heck, in the middle of the week, and you're just waiting for those Twitter updates where you're like, yes, they finally made a move. This also just wasn't a free agency class where even before this, I wasn't expecting them to make many splash signings. I thought Jesse Bates maybe was on the list. I thought maybe they would spend more than people expected on a will linebacker like a David Long type or a Bobby Okereke. But that didn't manifest. That wasn't the case. So this is the process where they're saying, okay, what is the market? What are certain players asking prices? What are other teams going to pay them? What are they thinking? There's 32 teams involved in all these processes. So, I'm preaching patience. You don't have to if you don't want to, but I'm just saying it's going to take some time before we really see what this process is.
Okay, so we will see, and it does play out, and you're right. That's the thing. Is like there's two things, Taylor. I don't think anybody is like, woe is us. They lost Jakobi, the season's over. It's not a doom and gloom scenario. But when you're and again, it's really hard to take a snapshot of not only free agency, but the entire offseason until you've seen free
Apparently
agency.
Gilmore to the Cowboys also. I'm sorry to cut you off, but the chat's blowing up.
Who?
Gilmore to the Cowboys, apparently.
There you go. But you got to look at the free agency, the draft, and then any sort of trades that you can make along the way before you figure out. So it's roster shaping. You don't have to get an A+ in one and an A+ in another and an A+ in the third in order to have or to field a good team. But you have to. You gotta. It's like dieting. You gotta expend more calories than you take in. You gotta gain more, and this is the opposite. You have to bring in more than you lose. So while Jakobi on his own is not going to make or break the team, having the wide receiver core they currently have without addressing it in a serious way, I think will impact the team.
Well, sure, but okay. Let's look at the receiving core that they do have. Okay, I've even said yesterday they need more help. It's important to remember that at wide receiver, you see at the top of the list, Devontae Parker. He is their only true X receiver. Now, the Patriots have done fine without an X receiver. At the same time, Devontae Parker is injury prone. If they can get someone who can just fill in, run literally a hitch, a go, and a slant in the game, they should be okay. But you also need depth there, which may not be something that a lot of fans think of. Behind him, obviously, you got Kendrick Bourne and Tyquan Thornton. Both players where, from a consistency standpoint, you don't have a lot there. There's not a lot of, tape to say that Kendrick Bourne or Tyquan Thornton can handle 80 targets in the season and be your go-to guy. But Kendrick Bourne has shown that even in limited targets, he can make a massive impact. He was up there with Jakobi Meyers and a lot of the explosive plays and touchdowns and things like that, despite the fact that Kendrick Bourne saw less than half of his target share. Then you got Tyquan Thornton. Obviously, was hurt last year. His consistency waned as the year went on. But that said, he's got the speed and that playmaking ability that Meyers lacked from the Z spot, which is off the ball, typically outside, sometimes inside. And that's something.
So is that your internal replacement?
I think it's
a combination. Bourne, it's Tyquan,
and also not to be left out, Hunter Henry at the same time. He is, I think, the closest person you're going to see to the replacement in terms of Meyers' route tree. What was Meyers having success on? Crossing routes, corner routes. Move the chains. What did Hunter Henry do under McDaniels? Literally the exact same route tree. So when it comes to, Meyers being that guy in the middle, I think you replace a ton of that with Hunter Henry, and then bit roles you start giving to other people who have more upside than Meyers gave you.
Yep, no doubt about that. So, I mean, I'm going to challenge that's fine. It's not going to win you anything, and it puts you a great distance behind your other competitors in the AFC East in terms of playmakers. I think we have to differentiate between adequate or has some potential with are these people enough to get you excited and think that the Patriots offense can improve and evolve in meaningful ways. And everybody has placed a lot of emphasis on the coaching, but the bottom line is there's personnel issues there to consider where you're just lacking big-time playmakers where you got to figure out how to add them. The thing is, Meyers wasn't one. So I think you're not replacing Meyers for a Meyers guy. You're going to replace Meyers with somebody who does something that Meyers could not do. I agree with you there. You can supplement Meyers' production using current players on your roster and be fine. You can go get Braxton Berrios for $4 million if that's what you want to do and run him around. But I'm not exactly, you don't need to go get another Meyers.
Right. I think that's one of the bigger points we need to address is that they're not replacing Meyers, they're replacing his production.
Yeah.
Where you need someone who you're like, all right, a consistent person where the other team is saying that is their guy. Meyers was the guy, but he wasn't anybody that you heard it from GMs, from people who spoke to GMs. Meyers isn't the guy that scares you and that you have to game plan for. And he was the guy who was getting the most targets by far of any Patriots receiver. That was a problem. Now, it's very easy to say, okay, go into free agency. They haven't been, allowed in free agency. What are you going to do? There was no one on the free agent market who was going to be that difference maker. There still isn't. Now, then you go to, okay, trades. You have to have something another team wants to be able to say, I'll trade you this for that. If a fan can give me a realistic trade scenario where they get Hopkins and, the player also in some terms when it's someone like Hopkins, where he's an older player with a lot of respect, teams tend to say, okay, we'll try to get you somewhere that you want to go, as a sign of respect and, thanks for what you've done for the organization. So there's a lot of people that have to be okay with the trade. So that's just a lot harder than people realize. Now, okay, trade doesn't work out. Go to the draft. They have the 14th overall pick. If they want a high production player from college, like a Zay Flowers, like a JSN.
Just say, for example, Zay Flowers. We haven't really talked about him before, but sure, yeah.
But that's what I'm saying.
I know, I'm just kidding. I know you like him.
Yeah, no problem. But if that's your guy, because they've both proven that at the college level, they can be the guy. They can be the one that gets all the targets, that has the production. And that's what they're missing. There's no one on the roster who's proven they can be healthy enough or consistent enough in a season to be the focal point of an offense. And if they can get that, yes, it's young. But frankly, and the reason I always mention Zay Flowers, they had him at the Senior Bowl. They have been he's had their place for a long time. He knows their verbiage. I think that they at least have given him enough of a head start where they say, we bring you into the system, especially when you look at, again, I think we talked about this yesterday.
Yes,
if you look at his interviews, his professionalism, it's something as a fan you can say, oh, well, he's a professional. How does that translate to the field? If the Patriots think that you can be responsible and you are dedicated to the job and your assignment, that's when you see young players start to ascend quickly because they adjust faster.
Yep.
There's going to be a learning curve. But the thing is, if you get a rookie who can still be a dynamic playmaker, they've got 4 really solid role players who can do things for your offense to keep you on schedule. And then you get the rookie like a Zay or a JSN where it's, okay, this puts us in a level where you really have to consider these extra receivers. And that's when it gets fun and Bill O'Brien can play with matchups and things like that. Could also be a dynamic tight end, could be a dynamic running back. What you need is a key player at any position that attracts coverage, and then you work from there. That's my main thing. You can definitely find that production. It's just so early in the process.
You need guys other teams have to account for, and the Patriots have long not had that, and that's a problem there, where guys can be taken out or not really, of any concern. So you're not stressing the defense with anything that you're throwing out there. So yes, you have to get more aggressive, and you're either going to get more vertical, or you got to figure out a way to get people who can really do something after they get the ball in their hands, and you want to put it in their hands as much as possible and let them make the plays if you're going to be kind of playing in that short to intermediate sort of universe where we think the Patriots mainly like to dwell. But again, you've also got Bill O'Brien, and he might have a different idea and a different philosophy. You do have to wonder how much Jakobi Meyers is a guy that doesn't work for the types of things that Bill O'Brien wants to do. He wants to get a little bit more creative. He wants to, like I said, get more vertical. You might say this, I got enough of these guys, so we'll figure it out. So that happens there. Staying on receivers before we move to the tackle, we talked about this before. Your ideal at this point targets, obviously Zay Flowers is one. I think he does everything the Patriots would want, whether you want to take him at 14, roll the dice, trade back, see if you can get him later. I'm not sure exactly what that is, but I don't think anybody's going to lament if the Patriots go receiver in that first round, and if they end up with a guy like that. Other guys you mentioned, again, it looks like Denver's really really set on doing one of these things. If you were going to make a move for Judy or Cortland Sutton for the right price, which of the two fits better for you?
I think it's definitely Judy. With Cortland Sutton, I think he'd be a more consistent version of Devontae Parker, just because, again, health and the fact that he's not a guy who really separates, so it's a lot of contested catches, which can make his consistency a little less than you'd want for, that type of receiver. But Judy is the guy that you can line up one inside, and he gives you that speed element. But I really think more than a yak guy, he's more of a vertical threat who, once he's in the open field and has that speed, if you give him space, that's where he's really dangerous. I'm not really sure he's the kind of guy that necessarily makes guys miss a lot in the open field, but he's someone at the very least you can put, at that Z spot and have a role where you say, okay, you take all the intermediate stuff. Maybe once Tyquan Thornton bulks up, you say he's the guy that you want in that role. I don't think there's either one of them is really a great fit for what I think they need. They need a yak guy. I think that's Kendrick Bourne, but he hasn't been that yet. But like Kendrick Bourne gives you vertical ability. Parker gives you vertical ability. Thornton gives you vertical ability. They need someone who can take the ball underneath and consistently be that guy on Haas wide juke, makes a guy miss, and then he makes it 20 yards when he only ran 5. Yeah. So I don't really honestly think either of them are a great fit in that role necessarily. Yeah. But for what the Patriots need, they need a guy off the ball who can make those splash plays. They put in motion all those things. I think that's probably more Judy.
Yeah, I think that's fair. We're going to talk about another receiver changing addresses in just a little bit. Plus, also we do want to talk about once again the Patriots making a signing today, and we'll get Taylor's take on that. It is addressing an area of need. Again, we do want to just tell you at home, those of you who are interested in this, again. If you're in Massachusetts, listen up. It's snowing all over. What are you going to do today? Watch some sports, maybe lay some action, right? Sports betting now legal in the Bay State. FanDuel and CLNS have partnered. It's America's #1 sports book with the region's leading digital provider of sports content. And it's a great partnership here, and we're happy to bring it to you. So again, you want to get in on this? $5. A $5 bet, all you have to do, it gets you $200 in bonus bets. You just have to go right there, as you can see on the screen, fanduel.com/Boston. If you go there, you can take advantage of this special offer. Deposit 10, bet 5, 200 is yours. Super easy to do, super safe. It's secure. Trust me, when you look at that interface and compared to others, it's night and day. It's not even close. So again, don't miss your chance at that $200 in bonus bets. Visit fanduel.com/Boston. Make every moment more on America's #1 sportsbook. Now, the rules here, you have to be 21 or over and present in the state of Massachusetts. As we said, $10 first deposit is required, but the bonus is issued no matter what. It's non-withdrawable. Bonus bets expire in 14 days. Restrictions do apply. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem, hope is here. gamblinghelplinema.org. Once again, gamblinghelplinema.org, or call 800-327-5050 for 24/7 support. Let's get into some of the other stuff that happened here with the Patriots, and that's they got a tackle. Calvin Anderson, 2-year deal, Broncos. Is this a depth play? Is this someone who can press to start? What's your take?
So, frankly, this is a new name to me. He was on the Patriots. The Patriots initially got him out of college. That much I know. He played some games for the Broncos last season. From what I've heard from people who watch the Broncos closely, he's the kind of guy who was really good when he was a starter, more of a backup, but he had solid flashes. From what I've seen, I watched him against Chandler Jones. Still kind of digging in, trying to get more, but, quick analysis. So against Chandler, he was actually pretty solid. Chandler Jones, one of the best rushers in the league, more because he's unconventional. His rush plans and his body language just aren't very normal, and it's tough for people to acclimate to, which makes him a really tough matchup. Trent Brown had a lot of trouble, just so you know, with Chandler Jones, and it wasn't anything where it's like Trent Brown's awful. Chandler Jones is very good. So that said, Anderson had a really solid game against him. What I saw he struggled with was anytime he didn't initiate contact, because Chandler Jones does a great job of taking advantage when players kind of lunge at him because he's such a long guy. They want to make contact first.
He's Chandler Jones.
He's Chandler Jones. I'm just trying to make sure fans have as much understanding that
No,
this
but
was someone who is like probably a low maybe mid tier starter with great coaching against an elite player who's may be going into the Hall of Fame. But no, he was very, very solid. He had some wins against Chandler Jones one-on-one, which is a testament to itself.
yeah,
Where he struggled was more with lunging when he would try to make contact and Jones would kind of swat his arms down and you'd see him fall down, lose his balance. There were some times where he's more of an Isaiah Wynn type where he's athletic, but he's not the biggest guy
yeah,
and he struggles with power. So he actually did a pretty good job against Chandler Jones when against power to re-anchor and kind of get his feet nice and wide and take that impact. But against true power rushers, I think
yeah.
he may struggle. But it makes me wonder, are they thinking about maybe moving Trent Brown to the right side? Now,
Yeah,
Trent Brown isn't as much of an athlete. He's more of a power mauler. I think him next to Mike Onwenu would be insane. I
and
think he's
that's where
got.
they've seen great success, particularly running the ball when
Mhm.
you had Trent Brown over on that right side.
Oh,
It
yeah.
just absolutely, just as you said, mauling people.
Mhm.
And I think, I think it's depth. You're looking at what Connor McDermott atop the depth chart alongside
Yeah.
Trent Brown. Obviously, this guy can press for time,
Mhm.
but you still have to probably address it in the draft pretty high
Yeah.
if you're going to get somebody else who can come in and compete for snaps.
For sure, but that's what I think this move was, and I think they tried to do it yesterday when they tried to get Andre Dillard.
Yeah,
Andre Dillard is someone who was a career backup most of the time, but he also had starting experience.
yeah.
So I think it shows a lot of trust in Adrian Clem to be able to develop these guys the way that Dante Scarnecchia could take an undrafted guy, from college and turn him into a pretty viable starter, or even a Super Bowl winner like Ryan Wendell, for example. Good offensive line coaches can make it simple, make sure everybody sees things on the same kind of plane. Where it's one of his popular sayings was see things through 5 set of eyes. So
Yep.
you want to be on the same page. If Clem can do that, I think you get the best out of him, and it gives you more flexibility to say, okay, we'll spend a third, maybe fourth round pick on an offensive lineman. See what we get in this veteran. If this young player who has similar technical issues or similar level of technical issues can do better than the veteran, we'll slide him in and then, throw him into the fire, give him some help when he needs it, and you're good.
Yep.
So it just gives them options. It gives them options.
Yeah, it gives them options. And just to understand, Anderson was here, cup of coffee, just in the
Mhm.
offseason as an undrafted free agent in 2019. He did play there for last season, started 12 games. Again, you're talking a team that probably had one of the worst offenses we've seen in the last decade. So being a starter on that offense is certainly not anything to put at the top of your resume. But you are talking about somebody who played and got some reps in there. So he certainly could kind of factor into the mix, in that position. But you're kind of getting a snapshot here, Taylor, of the Patriots offseason of free agency plans. We've seen them go in a couple different directions. 2 years ago, you saw early bang, bang, bang. They go out, they get their guys, Hunter Henry, Jonnu Smith, and Nelson Aguilar, big money. They spent it early. There was clearly a plan. They wanted to be aggressive. When you see them kind of do what they're doing right now, it's obvious that plan is we're going to hold. We're going to hold our cards. We're going to let everybody else spend the big bucks, whatever's out there. We're going to see what's left. We're going to pick up some of the pieces, but also we're going to have the cap flexibility, I think. And this is what where their minds should potentially be, potential cap flexibility to take on some contracts here and take on some money in a trade. So again, that the money that they have there is not going to sit there unspent. They're just, I think at this point saying, I'm not seeing anybody out there who I think is worth what we're willing to pay at this moment. And this is an approach that they take, has worked in the past. I think a lot of other teams are doing it as well. So we'll kind of see what else trickles down for them and what they're able to do. One team making moves right now that we kind of know where this is headed, but it's worth talking about. Aaron Rodgers has to have things on his terms, okay? It was reported that a Jets trade was imminent and he was cool with it, but then it was no, wait a second, blah, blah, blah. And Rodgers has a wish list, apparently. And on that wish list is every receiver he's ever played with to come in to join him at the Jets, who already have Garrett Wilson, who already have Elijah Moore, who have a couple of pass catchers there that honestly, Rodgers, after playing what he played with last season, should be like, oh my God, I'm so excited to have some guys I can throw to. But nope, he's got to have his binkies. And one of them, Obviously, Randall Cobb is going to find his way there at some point or another. That's an absolute certainty. But another is a bigger big ticket item for the Jets, Alan Lazard, who, boom, 4-year 44. Now, this is almost a straight swap for the Jets. Corey Davis, what they're able to save by cutting him is almost exactly what Lazard is going to be making. So it's just a flip. Lazard for Davis. I don't know. This is a wide receiver 3 in my mind. I don't know how much he impacts what the Jets do. It certainly gives him somebody else. But I think the bigger story here is that the Rodgers trade at this point appears imminent, and this was one of the first dominoes that needed to fall. So I think Rodgers is pretty much bags packed, headed to New York at this point. Obviously, things could change. What does this do for the division?
Well, I mean, let's go with Lazard first. He actually did have some really nice plays against the Pats
Sure.
last year because he's that big slot guy. And the reason you have a big slot is because most slot defenders, like the Patriots defenders, are well under 6 feet tall. And Lazard is a really big guy. So it gives you more competition in that role where before you had smaller guys like Barrios, Elijah Moore when he was able to see the field, like more natural slot types in that role where guys like John Jones, Miles Bryant, Marcus Jones could be really more competitive because that's a good matchup for them. So it may make that a bit tougher, but realistically, if I'm being totally honest, based on my film study, Alan Lazard is like slants and slot fades. It's 2 routes. Luckily, the release patterns for those routes, they work really well off each other where it's, you have a defender guessing one or the other. But it's not a huge movement, I think. It may result in 3 to 4 more big plays than you'd see, with maybe another receiver. Now, if Rodgers comes, obviously that completely changes the math. I don't know if we want to get deep into, Rodgers joining the AFC East if that were to happen, but in terms of Lazard, without Rodgers, it doesn't move the needle for me much. With Rodgers, it moves it like that much.
Okay, but it's again, I think the bigger story, we're not there yet, is Rodgers is laying the groundwork for what he wants to have happen in New York in order to be able to go there. If he goes there, what does that do instantly to them? If Rodgers goes there right now, that takes them from wherever they were to where?
At the worst case scenario, it makes the Jets a stable offense, which is pretty scary considering they were a fantastic defense. With Breece Hall, they may be a top 10 run game. I don't want to say that immediately because he's coming off injury. We need to see. He had a bunch of injuries on the offensive line for New York, but it at least gives you a sense of, okay, the offense isn't going to lose us games. And the offense lost them a lot of games last year. So it gives you a level of, okay, the Jets are on the schedule. We really need to get our stuff together because Rodgers is one of the better quarterbacks in the league. Even if he's not Aaron Rodgers, how people may think of him, he's still a fantastic player. Now, if Rodgers is coming back with a vengeance and he decides, I'm going to have another MVP caliber season, then you have another legitimate competitor in the AFC East, and you already have one in the Bills.
This guy won MVP 14 months ago. You can't discount him, even though I think you saw some signs of physical decline kind of creeping in. But also, this was a really ragtag group that he was throwing. The Green Bay was a mess all season long, trying to figure out what they were doing.
I mean, but they were a mess for a lot of the same reasons that the Jets were. Like, they had inconsistency because of injuries on the O-line. That was a big thing for the Jets last season, although the Packers got some of their guys back. But last season you saw, especially because of the lack of trust, which is why I think they're trying so hard to bring all these people to the party over in New York, Rodgers was throwing way too many RPOs last year. Like, for a quarterback of his caliber, the amount he was throwing behind the line of scrimmage short relative to the people he had around him, it just didn't make a lot of sense. So it was very clear that with guys like Romeo Doubs and Christian Watson and young, talented guys that he just wasn't familiar with, it was better tail end of the season and you started to see, Rodgers still has it. But it's the continuity for him. It's like Brady. Everybody always gave Brady crap because he wants his guys. If you're not on the same page as Brady, you're not going to play.
No, that's who he is. He's very particular. You got to be in that circle of trust. And if you're not, he might not look your way. And that's obviously a problem with him. But again, we're talking about a team that has a roster that actually has a good amount of talent on it. Absolutely smashed last year's draft. Okay. Smashed it. And right now, I think if you're looking at this from a Patriots perspective, it's not how great is Aaron Rodgers still, it's how not Zach Wilson is Aaron Rodgers now. And it's and how big a difference is that? It's a massive difference. And so you're looking at it from two things. I mean, really, if you're a Patriot, you're looking at it from one perspective right now. Have the Jets passed us? Have they leapt past us here? Okay. Because it was pretty close already last year. And at this point, if you're a Patriots fan, are you looking at yourself and saying, okay, Rodgers goes to the Jets? We're friggin' fourth decisively heading into the season. And again, a lot could still happen. But if you're just scanning the landscape and the rosters of these teams heading in, it's hard to feel that you're any higher than fourth if you're the Patriots right now.
I agree.
That's the hard reality is a lot can happen, but a lot needs to happen in order to change that perception.
Right. Like, I think everybody knows at this point it's a quarterback's game. Like, it's which quarterback do you trust more at the end of the day, unless they're playing the freaking 12 Seahawks. You know what I mean? Right. So I think it puts the pecking order as Bills, Jets. I think Jets and Dolphins is really just decided by Rodgers. I think the Dolphins are third because they have a ridiculous amount of skill talent, and that's going to put you in a lot of games, regardless of unless it's Skylar Thompson. But it's going to keep you in a lot of games. And the Patriots, again, it's so early. The league year started yesterday. Like, you have to remember,
it's over.
A lot of things that need to be done.
It's
yes,
over.
But obviously, if you're talking about skill positions, then yes,
Wemby.
Other teams are better. Everybody in the AFC East is better than the Patriots at skill position. Everybody, I think based on Tua's production, you have to say that he is over Mac Jones. I think if you give them the same caliber of players, I think Mac Jones does way more for you. But that said, if you're talking production, the Patriots are last in the division, and there's no way around that. But again, very early. Very, very early.
It's very, very, very early. And it is, it's just, is there a magic solution? Like you have to, a lot of things have to start going right for you in order to feel better about, where the Patriots are. I don't think everybody thinks or expecting it that it's going to happen here on day 2 of free agency, but I do think that people definitely want to see the Patriots start to get better sooner than later. Otherwise, what are you doing this for?
I mean, absolutely. Maybe I'm reading too much of my Twitter mentions, and that's maybe adding a little bit too much doom and gloom. But I still think you have Bill O'Brien. I think that is something you cannot understate. That is going to have ramifications for the offense that are going to be hard to understand until you see the product on the field. You can say what Bill O'Brien did in college, what he did with the Texans, what he did with Tom Brady in 2011. People don't care about that. So I will say, keep in mind that just the fact that the offense will have more consistency and better leadership from a coaching perspective and from a coordination standpoint will work wonders. I think this offense, with who it has right now, could still be one of the better offenses in the NFL where fans wouldn't really be complaining about their efficiency, maybe about firepower at the very most if Tyquan Thornton doesn't play out.
Yeah.
But I think it's the offseason. It's wait and see. I think the coaching staff additions were the biggest point of this. They have a great offensive coordinator and an offensive line coach who, by all accounts, should be a huge advantage over what they had last season, obviously, when Matt Patricia was trying to do both things. Again, that's maybe just my patience of watching this team so long, and it's just that wait and see thing that they always do. Hasn't worked great in the past few years, I completely admit, and I'm not going to act like in Bill we trust is as ironclad as it used to be. But I think the coaching changes are the biggest thing people need to focus on, and then you see, okay, well, once all these processes are over, what weapons do they have, and what do they have to work with? That's when I think it's safer to have a closer measurement of, okay, skill positions versus skill positions. Where do they stack up?
Yeah, no doubt about it. We're going to look very quickly here before we take off. Day 2 targets we mentioned, and this was earlier in the
Bradbury. I'm sorry, Bradbury is also off the board. Yep,
Bradbury's off the board. We put it up earlier, but this was what we were talking about earlier. Right now, the reason I put this up is mainly because of the last name on the list. If you're going to go get an impact person, that might be the last bet that you have there is someone like Schultz. Other than that, I don't think there's going to be anything splashy here in free agency, and I really do think you got to start looking at trades as something that's going to be an avenue where the Patriots look to improve.
Yeah. Especially, and when you're talking about which position would we like to talk about? I'm sorry, I'm not gonna lie. I was sending out a tweet about James Bradbury.
No, I honestly, it's not even the position as much as kind of just waiting to see if things fall. But I just wanted to let everybody know those are Taylor's day 2 targets. We'll have more to discuss as the day goes on. We're probably going to wrap it up and just wanted to let you know you can subscribe to all of our content here. And again, this is day 2. For those of you who don't know, Taylor Kyles, terrific film analyst, someone who's worked closely with CLNS Media in the past. You've also probably read his work on Pat's Pulpit or just followed him on Twitter and seen some of the really good insight and film analysis that he does. Just a ridiculously astute football analyst and observer who's going to bring a ton to CLNS Media. So we're super happy to have Taylor here. If you haven't already, give him a follow on Twitter. Give us a follow here and subscribe to our Patriots YouTube channel. Check out CLNS Media. Taylor's going to have some stuff coming over. He's digging into a little bit of film after a power outage kind of knocked us out a little bit earlier in the day. But we're going to be up and running with that stuff. So make sure that you check all of that out.
Yes, sir. Excited to be on board for day 2 of quote unquote free agency. We'll get after some of these new moves.
Yeah. So again, we appreciate you guys coming in. Honestly, we can do this. We can do this all day. So if something else happens, we will jump back on. I promise you, and break it down. We do also have on this channel coming up in a little bit, Patriots Beat. At 7 o'clock. You can catch that with Mike Cadlick and Alex Barth. They're going to be having some of the conversations about what's going on here, but could be some updated information. So if you just want more of a football fix, you got those guys coming up at 7 o'clock. And we might have a garden report over on our main channel tonight at 8:30 with a special guest. Look for notifications on that. You can always follow us over at Celtic CLNS on Twitter to see that information. Subscribe to all of our YouTube channels as well. Last time, I'll tell you again, FanDuel, sports betting legal in Massachusetts. If you are interested in signing up, please consider doing so using this URL on the screen, fanduel.com/Boston. That way they know that we sent you. Bet 5, get 200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you sign up at fanduel.com/Boston and claim that special offer. We're going to wrap it. A little bit of Patriots news today. There's obviously going to be a great deal more to come. Look for us probably tomorrow. Taylor and I will check back in, kind of see what's going on. But if there's breaking news, expect us to jump up at any point and make sure that we're covering that for you as well. We're gonna have you covered all the way through free agency and honestly the rest of the calendar year here now that Taylor is on board working the beat, which is great. So thanks guys for hanging out. It was awesome. Sorry about the problems earlier in the day. We're gonna wrap it. We will